Are you like us? Tired of all the politically correct horseshit on podcasts and in the media? Need a podcast that's funny, smart, and gassy? It's not politically correct. It's just correct. This is the Carolina Underground. Throw that middle finger in the air. Raise them up. Because it's time to get loud, proud, and in your face. Generation X. Generation X. The best generation of all time meets the grit of the South. It's about everything and nothing at all. From current events to woolly boogers to movies to politics. Loud, brash, funny, and never, and I do mean never, predictable. The Carolina Underground with Mark and Mike.
Yo, 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 it's the Carolina Underground, and we're back again, coming to you live from the replica Bat Cave and Sparkleberry.
And how are you this evening, sir?
Ooh, I'm fair to middling, up to my neck in alligators as usual, just ready to... last week I said I was going to keep the General Lee fired up early, but, that's probably not a good thing because gas is expensive.
Yeah, well, it depends on what kind of gas.
Well, I saw something this week that has just totally chapped my cheeks on my posterior.
All right.
And it's just made me mad. And I'm going to be honest with you. If I could have got my hands on the little rascals what done it, I would have catched the charge because they wouldn't be breathing no more.
What in the world happened to you?
Well, it didn't happen to me. That's the thing.
I
was reading on the social medias.
All right.
And
on the interwebs.
On the interwebs. And they were showing this. They were talking about it. It was some news site. I think it was in the UK, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And... but that don't excuse us because we've got people over here that are just as stupid and ignorant and evil as this too. So don't feel better because it's in the UK. But these kids, and I say kids loosely because they're younger than I am, had this dog, locked it in a kennel, and set it on fire.
Oh, my Lord.
And the poor little dog, its skin was burned off. Its nose was like burnt half off. And it did everything it could to escape from that kennel so much that it had pieces of plastic embedded into its head from trying to get out of that kennel that was on fire.
Oh, my God.
The dog survived, luckily. He is getting, medical treatment. But them little rascals, I'm going to tell you one thing. There is a special place in hell for somebody that hurts a little baby dog like that.
That is something I have never, ever understood is the people that get joy from harming living creatures.
Or something, because that, and that little dog was a little dog. I mean, it wasn't a Chihuahua little, but it wasn't a big dog. It wasn't big like Flossie. Because I'm going to tell you right now, one of them rascals roll up and do something like that to Flossie, you might as well get old Sparky and Sparkleberg ready because y'all going to have to flip the switch because I'm going to catch a couple charges because I'm going to behead a few people.
Well, I mean, again, there was several years back that 2 teenage girls in Florida were trying to set a box turtle on fire.
Why?
I know that's the thing. Why? What possesses what sort of, and I mean, again, we've talked about this when we talked about Nefarious and some of the other stuff about, I cannot fathom anything short of just plain evil.
Right.
Making somebody actually in the first place come up with the thought of, hey, let's put this thing in here and set it on fire
and see what happens to it. Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
How broken do you have to be to and this was one of the things,
Well,
again,
in the
way back
redneck
at the beginning.
agenda, we do not condone any violence to animals. People, that's a different story because people can sometimes help being stupid. Animals ain't
Well,
stupid.
and well, no, animals are animals. They operate based on instinct. But I mean, and again, this is, golly, Pete. I mean, it's just,
I'm gonna get me
how broken is humanity now?
I'm gonna get me a
That does make
T-shirt
me. Go ahead.
made. I found a T-shirt I'm gonna get too, and I'm gonna wear it around just to. If people don't like it, I hope it pisses them off, just like this podcast. And
Well,
it says, "I support putting animal abusers to sleep."
oh, absolutely. If you're that, I mean, that's the thing. And again, we had talked several times about possibly doing some looking into the behavioral science stuff, like Stanley Milgram
Mm-hmm.
and things of that nature, because you have a background in that. And I think it would, and I would like to learn more about it.
You know
We
what the
talked
funny
about,
thing about that is?
what is the funny thing about that?
I spent, I ain't know how many untold, well, I spent money,
Hours.
my hours, money.
Yeah.
It was a bar with like a $60,000 cover charge. I mean, hey.
Yeah.
And then you got that, well,
higher education
and stuff like that. But, when I was taking those classes, it was actually enjoyable and I enjoyed it. When I actually got out of those classes and it came time to having to practice that, I just looked at people like, y'all are just crazy and I don't want anything to do with any of you.
Well, and this is the thing. This is that's the thing that amazes me. Is it chemical? Okay, I mean, again, I watched the movie Sound of Freedom again not too terribly long ago with my girl, and it's just, what is it that is, and what is it that is broken inside of someone's mind that makes them look at an innocent child? And I mean, well, the Prophet Muhammad, for example, look at an innocent child and think anything other than, I want to protect and nurture that child, or I don't know. I mean, again, or look at an animal and think, I want to hurt it. I mean, is it genetic? Is it in the water? Is it, I mean, what causes this kind of, I mean, and again, you can go into, disease, mental illnesses like transvestism. And what is it that makes, is it an environmental factor that causes them to snap?
Well, I think it is, but we're going back to transvestism. It's also now part of the environment. We are encouraging people, like for example, I understand there are people that want to dress in women's clothes, and if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. But this is what gets me. I was talking to a person the other day, and they claim to be a transsexual. He's biological male, dresses as female, but he is a transsexual female lesbian. And
hold up, what?
Right. He's a lesbian, but because he likes girls, but he wants to be and it's just like, now you're getting a little bit, to me, I think it's getting to be, we as a society, and I know we have said this many times, and we go back to that thing to where we're beating that dead horse, but cue it up one more time. We are so far off in the weeds from reality, and the rest of us are just trying to scratch our head figuring, where did y'all come up with this? That they're just railroading crap and continue to railroad crap down our throats and down everybody's throat till they say, well, why aren't you accepting it as normal? Everybody else is.
Well, but I mean, again, it's the same thing as it's the same thing as, okay. So the initial thought that I had was, again, if somebody is a homosexual and they like the same sex in bed, all right, okay. I mean, I can accept that I'm very thankful that I don't have that problem, but I can accept that. Okay. But it's when they go in and say, because I'm wearing a pair of fake boobs and I declare this,
Mm-hmm.
I'm playing pretend,
I
but
know.
because I'm playing pretend, you have to play along with me. And it's the same kind of thing as the whole N-word and
Um, I
microaggressions.
will have you know, my boobs are
Hmm.
not fake. They are 100% man boobs, and I have got a hell of a lot of money invested in making them the perfect size.
Well, I'm glad to hear that and happy for you. But again, my point is, it's like you can't declare a word off limits
And then
because
use it
you
every
find
other
it,
friend.
and then use it yourself.
Right.
Yeah, it's not that's I mean, this is the kind of insane, and again, a microaggression, okay? I mean, I don't know anybody, any guy that ever commits intentionally a microaggression. And if you are not being intentionally aggressive, then there can't be.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. I would
Go
say
ahead.
the majority of not only males, but the majority of people probably have no clue what microaggression really is.
Well, but again, it goes back to when we were children, and I know when I was a child, but I'm assuming it was still the same way when you were, around, when you were in short breeches.
I'm in
But
short breeches now.
but we used to go around, sticks and stones may break my bones,
But
but words
words
can
will
never
never
harm me.
hurt me. And the 8 o'clock in the morning, get your butt out of bed. If you wasn't in
Hmm.
school, get outside, and you better be back before the sun goes down. Because when that's eating supper, I don't care if you get run over by a tractor or trailer. You better not be back in this house before dark.
Oh yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, and it was not going to be pleasant if your butt was in the house.
That's
But
right.
I mean, again, the point of the matter is, we learned somewhere along the way, and that was one of the things I was watching not too terribly long ago on the news, and this psychologist has just written a book
Mm-hmm.
talking about why the generation or the generations now that have had the most effort put into making sure that their feelings were never hurt is the most miserable bunch of people on the planet.
Well, it goes
Nothing
back to
pleases them.
where if you never learn how to lose,
Right.
you don't know how to
Exactly.
win.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
and we've got a young guy at work, and we discuss this a lot, some too. And I mean, we talk to him, and it's like I look at him as like, okay, who's this? Because I mean, and I'm talking, we're doing movie trivia or songs or
Mm,
singers or who is this? Yada 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 yada, and stuff that I think is ingrained in the fabric and the culture of America. They have
hmm.
no idea,
Well,
none.
they haven't been taught what America is. Now, and I mean, again, I've seen, there was a clip on Joe Rogan where they were talking about how, basically the plan to ensure that the next time that they pull strings and whatnot to make some incompetent doddering fool that like Joe Biden the leader of the free world
Mm-hmm.
so that they can continue to do their constant money laundering, and anybody that's not that thinks there is anything going on than money laundering by the most wealthy portion of the planet. All these globalists are only about raping the entire planet of all the money that they can get their hands on.
Right.
And all of these schemes with big pharma, all these schemes with the military industrial complex, all it is money laundering through the governments of the world
Mm-hmm.
so that they can rape the population for as much money as possible. And that is the problem, and that's what you have to be looking. Don't worry about abortion. Abortion is never going to go away. Illegal immigration is a tool that these people use to make sure that they've got the population where they want it.
Well, and it also, when they have a fear of legitimate loss, it also bolsters and swells their rolls for voters.
Oh, absolutely. But again, almost all marketing in the world is done based on fear, uncertainty, and discontent.
Well,
Okay, you got to do
you
this.
left off one.
What's that?
Sex.
Well, that's the other side of the coin. Well, unless you're talking about fear, uncertainty, and discontent that you're not going to get any. But
Hey,
you know,
welcome to
sex is
married life
sex
today,
is
brother.
there you go. Sex is the carrot. Fear, uncertainty, and discontent is the stick. But again, the point of the matter is, in the United States, in our Constitution, we have the tools to govern ourselves and be free. And I believe it was Ben Franklin, was it, when they ratified the Constitution, said, "You now have a constitutional republic. I hope you can hang on to it." Was it him or was it Hamilton? It was one of
I
them.
think
It
it
was
was
might have
Franklin.
been Madison.
I don't know, but
And
according to Google, Ben Franklin was black.
oh dear Lord, yeah, I heard about all of that stuff. That's insanity too. But again, so these poor kids, they haven't been taught the Constitution. They haven't been taught basic civics in high school or college. They're taught all of this nonsense. And I mean, again, if you haven't read 1984, and anybody that's listening, if you have not read 1984 by George Orwell, look at what is going on today and think about think speak. It's exactly what's happening. Only thing is, it's being done through social media instead of
Mm-hmm.
they didn't have social media, so the
Right.
concept didn't exist. So this was done by, bureaucrats sitting
Right.
there editing books because that's what they had at the time. There wasn't an interwebs. So, but at any rate, the
Well, and
point
it's kind of
being,
like this young guy at work, and I hate to pick on him because he's not here to defend himself, maybe, but I'm not really picking on him. I'm just stating a fact. We were talking about the two battles of Bull Run and
right.
Manassas. He has no clue. He didn't know the Antietam or
Mm-hmm.
Shiloh Hill, and I mean, this is stuff we learned about. Not,
In
I don't,
high school.
right, and I don't think it was because we were in the South that we learned it,
No.
because we learned about Gettysburg and all of this,
Right.
but we also, I said, what do you think about um, the story of Wilmer McLean? And he just kind of looked at me like I'd lost my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Wilmer McLean, if you know anything about I'm not going to call it a civil war, but because
The
in
War
order
of
for
Northern Aggression.
you have to, for a civil war, you have to have two factions fighting for control of the same government. The South didn't want control of the federal government; it wanted its own government.
Correct. Yeah. So
But
technically,
be that as it
it
may,
was technically an insurrection and not a civil war. But go ahead.
well, I would say it was the War of Southern Independence or the War of Northern Aggression, because the North is who invaded the South.
Well, no, absolutely. And again, and there's truth on both sides, and there's lies on both sides.
Right.
Now, I mean, the truth of the matter is that the South did not want tariffs. The North wanted tariffs. The South was an agricultural society and survived on exports of cotton, indigo, and rice to primarily the British colonies,
Mm-hmm.
and the French. But the North, of course, being more industrialized and having expensive goods that they wanted the Southerners to purchase from them, it was cheaper to purchase it and have it shipped from Europe.
Well, and I mean, when we were talking about this, I go, "What about Wilmer? What do you think about Wilmer McLean?"
Well, go ahead.
And he looked at me like a deer caught in headlights, and he's like, "I have no idea who Wilmer McLean is."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Well, Wilmer McLean owned the house and the land where the first battle of the Civil War, quote unquote, started. Mm-hmm. And he didn't want to be in the way of the battle. So he bought another house in Appomattox Courthouse, and lo and behold, that is where Lee surrendered to Grant, in Wilmer McLean's parlor."
Right.
So it's kind of, that's the little tidbits like that float around there. I find that extremely interesting. And he looked at me and like, "Well, so And I'm like, you don't find that interesting? And I said, and truthfully, that didn't end the Civil War because Lee wasn't in command of the entire Confederate armies. He
Right. He
only
was only
commanded the Army of Southern Virginia.
I thought it was Northern Virginia.
Northern Virginia.
Was it Southern Virginia? Yeah, it was
Northern Virginia.
Yeah. Now, but again, back to finish up the thought that I had. Yes, the South threatened to secede from the Union if the tariffs were imposed, because it would put the entire Southern economy in a stranglehold, because
Right.
that would destroy their ability to export goods, because the Europeans would stop purchasing them out of spite because of the tariff.
Mm-hmm.
That having been said, the word slavery was mentioned 180 times in the Articles of Confederation, not the Articles of Secession.
Right.
Now, so there's truth on both sides of the argument. There is falsehood on both sides of the
Right.
argument. And you know that history is written by the victor.
Correct.
Okay. Now, so all of that having been said, again, this is a story as old as time itself. You've always got a group, the actual war is not between the North and the South, or the whites and the blacks, or the greens and the browns, or the plaids and the yellows, or whatever. It's not between the gays and the straights. It is between the people who just want to be.
You making it sound kind of like West Side Story.
That's right, or the Sharks and the Jets. The war is between the people who want to be left alone to live their lives.
And the people want to stick their nose in everybody's dad blame business.
Exactly. And those are the people that always consistently are doing so solely for the purpose of their own enrichment. That is the war that we're all fighting.
Continually today.
Exactly. And if the idiots that think that these other causes are of any importance would get their heads out of the sand and realize that we're all on the same side, we have the unique position in the United States of being able to do something about it.
Supposedly.
Okay, but we have that, but unfortunately the most powerful force in the universe is apathy. So
there's a lot of that, but we're not this, and this episode was not meant to be a rehashing of the Civil War or causation of the Civil War. We'll go into that more depth later on. I do have a good story that I do want to talk about, because we had talked about the little dog getting set on fire, and there is nothing in this world that will break somebody's heart than the plight of a pet, or even an animal that you don't know that's sick, that needs treatment or something like that. And, we humans are not the only animals limited to getting infected with cancers and whatnot like that.
Correct.
Okay. I found this story the other day, and I saved it, and because I have a very strong soft spot for animals. I've rescued dogs. I like to help dogs all I can. Cats, I'm not such a big fan of because they're plotting on taking over the world, but that's a different story. But I found this story about Annabelle, and Annabelle was a 3-legged pit bull. Mm-hmm. She had finally gotten adopted, and her adopted family just loved her. And she was so happy. Well, her adoptive parents found about a 3-centimeter place on her right rear leg that just wouldn't get better.
Oh.
And they took her to the vet, and it finds out that it was cancerous. She had cancer.
My goodness.
And it was either, that she wasn't a candidate for surgery because she had been missing a leg. And she was 8 years old, and they just didn't think she would survive the surgery. Well, that brings us to the good news of today.
All right.
There is a new drug called Stelafanta. I don't know if I said that right, but it is a cancer drug for canines that has an 87% success rate in curing this form of cancer in dogs.
Well, that's outstanding.
And what it essentially does is it's an injection. You inject it. It costs about the same as the surgery, so I'm assuming it's not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
But what it does is it's designed to target mast cell tumors in dogs, and it induces necrosis in the mast cells. And then it also perpetuates prompt and rapid healing of the affected site, and it minimizes scarring and all that. And like I said, so far it has an 87% success rate in the puppies that have been saved from cancer that it's been used on. And I mean, that's just kind of amazing because, there's not but a hop, skip, and a jump till you can translate that into maybe something that can do the same thing for our species that has getting cancer and stuff like that, if they will ever get to the point that they want to actually try to cure it instead of stringing people along with treatments.
Well, but that's the point. Again, it's the same thing, is because the big pharma, shtick is that every patient cured is a customer lost.
Right.
And so this is the whole thing, and again, it goes back to the old adage that the love of money is the root of all evil. And I don't believe it's necessarily the root of all evil, but it certainly is the root of a lot of evil. But, a
nice hot cup of black coffee can cure a lot of evil. Because either it'll make me happy or I just throw it in evil's face.
I hear you, man. I hear you.
We got something coming up soon, too, within the next week or maybe this weekend or next weekend.
Well, now, what's that?
The Stinger's last Rasslin match.
Oh, my goodness.
He's finally returned. He's been doing it forever, ever and a day. I remember it wasn't that long ago. We were in the Greensboro Coliseum at the Clash of Champions that Jim Crockett Promotions was putting up against. I think it was WrestleMania or something, and showing on TBS for free. And, those was the days. I mean, wrestling seemed real. It just wasn't stupid.
Yeah, I have a hard time watching it anymore. I mean,
I don't really watch it. I follow a couple of, I follow Sting's Instagram, and I follow the Nature Boy, because he's the greatest of all time. And if you don't believe it,
he'll tell you.
Well, he'll tell you, and I'll tell you, like David Allen Coe said, if you don't like Ric Flair, you can kiss my ass. But and then when I don't know if I mentioned it last week, but we lost Ole Anderson the past week. He's one of the founding members of the Four Horsemen. This just seems like a week, last couple of weeks of wrestling news. Do you remember Billy Jack Haynes?
I do remember the name.
Well, he got charged. I can't
draw a picture right at the moment.
He got charged with second-degree murder for killing his wife.
Oh, that's a shame.
Out in the Pacific Northwest. So I'm sure there'll be more that comes out about that. But, it's just things just happen, and life happens, and it comes at us. And a lot of times I don't think we realize how much of an impact we have on others without really thinking about it.
Well, you're probably correct. You probably are correct there. I don't, we all do tend to live in our own little bubble, whether
we get so worked up in our own schedules, trying to get this done, rushing here, rushing there.
Oh yeah.
Trying to get stuff figured out. And then it's like, we freak out when somebody asks us something or replies something that's not of the accepted. It's kind of like when somebody asks you how you're doing, they're telepathing that you're going to say, "Oh, I'm fine. How about you?" And then when you give them the answer they're not looking for, it hangs them up. Kind of like Jimmy Buffett did in God's Own Drunk when he gave that bear a slash of that whiskey.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, there's, but I mean, again, that might help you out if you give somebody a splash of whiskey every now and again. But I mean, again, so the thing is, I mean, and how can we not be wrung out? Because every minute of every day, you're being told, oh my gosh, if you don't buy this Ring camera, people are going to steal you're going to have porch pirates stealing your Amazon. Oh, and if you
Mhm.
don't buy title lock insurance, you're going to lose uh, your home to some bad actor. And, I mean, again, the problem, all of these, I mean, I'm not saying these problems are not problems and they don't exist, but
Mhm.
we are hounded 24/7, 365 with doom, gloom, and oh my God, you've got to give us your money. It's like Ernest Angley telling
Oh,
you, if you
oh
need a
Lord,
blessing,
mercy.
put your hand on the television set. And I loved
And
Robin Williams' comment
well, that kind of, go ahead. I'll
of
do.
reach. Yeah, love Robin Williams' comment about reach around and stick your finger in the socket and feel the power of glory as it knocks your ass across the ring. So,
I was
but
thinking more like when he was reaching out and saying, reach out and touch the screen. The only thing I can think of is that interview Dusty Rose did, said, I'm reaching out and this is me touching you right now. Get ready for the Starcade 85, the gathering.
yep,
I'm
yep.
just on a wrestling mood tonight.
Well,
It's
good on
crazy.
you, mate.
Well, it's
Well,
just,
now,
it's just kind of, I've been doing a lot of kind of, what is it? I guess reflection on different things. And it's
all
like,
right.
no, we do a lot of stuff, and I've done a lot of stuff. I'll be the first one to admit I'm just as guilty as anybody in doing this. But then I got to thinking about it. Well, what can you do to get out of it and not do it? And I have yet to find a solution short of just restructuring the way I live altogether than to getting out
Well, you
of that humdrum format that society forces us into and locks us into and
well
keeps us in.
the first piece of the puzzle is to put down the social media, get off of these platforms like Facebook and Lord knows, I mean, again, Google's telling everybody that all the founding fathers. Now, see, and there's the point that I wonder, because like, wasn't it about 5 minutes ago that everybody was talking about the founding fathers being all racist and we needed to tear all their statues down? And now Google's
Right.
telling them they were all black. Okay, so how could they have been these white racists if they were all black? And I mean, it's we 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 got to stop the control of these global conglomerates because
Mm-hmm.
they're making us crazy. It's their goal for us to be crazy because crazy does everything they want to do. It creates more war, which translates to more weaponry sold, which translates to more dollars, and then
Right.
more people sick and more people thinking that there's something wrong with them when they just got a rotten attitude and don't have any coping skills because the knowledge I was talking to this about this with my daughter just the
Uh-huh.
other day, and she was talking about how chaotic life is. She's got a newborn.
Oh, she dearly does
Well,
have a chaotic life.
it is chaos. The minute that you have a child, your life becomes pretty much chaos. And it's going to stay that way for, 5 or 6 years. Okay. I mean, until they
Mm-hmm.
get old enough that they're supposed to have enough of a lick of sense not to hurt themselves lethally.
Right.
But, it's, life, there's no guarantee that we're going to have another minute on this earth. Not a one of us. I had a friend who used to clean pools for a living, and he
Mm-hmm.
was a young man, and he slipped off of the side of the pool, and the pool was empty, and he only fell probably 3 or 4 feet, I think, but he landed funny on his knees, and it bruised his knees, and a blood clot broke
Mm.
loose, ran straight up into his heart, killed him deader than a horn, deader than a hammer,
Mm.
and he wasn't even, if I remember right, he wasn't even 30 years old.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
it's like, we all have those scenarios. Like my best friend dropped dead at
Mm-hmm.
47.
Mm-hmm.
Have he literally hit the floor so hard that he put a dent in the floor when he fell.
Right.
Of course, thankfully he didn't suffer. He was dead before he hit the floor and didn't know it. But that it's just none of us are guaranteed we're going to be here tomorrow. And the way
That's
they're
right.
doing this stuff is we are putting our trust and essentially our lives in the hands of people that don't give a damn about us, have never
Right.
cared about us, don't care anything, whether either one of us wake up in the morning, whether any of us take another breath or not. And yet we're expecting them to do what's best and for us and in our interest. And for something that just doesn't equal out.
No, and it doesn't. And again, this thing, I've been thinking a lot about this whole thing about political speech and how they can say anything they bloody well want and call it political speech.
Mm-hmm.
And then they don't even get a slap on the wrist for
Right.
political speech. Now, I don't, when you consider that the penalty for you and me of perjury, if we perjure ourselves, lie to the court system, then
like Fannie
we
Willis.
are, yeah, exactly. Or Letitia James, quite frankly, they've found her stuff on her campaign contributions and whatnot are pretty ridiculous as well. They've already noticed she was hiring all sort of consultants at incredibly high rates of dollars. But at any rate, so I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of that.
Right.
But anyway, the point being that these people can say anything that they want. They look at the tax dollars that we spend as if it is their own personal pet piggy bank.
Right.
Okay. And they get away with it because, it's politics, it's political speech. It's just the way things work in Washington.
Well, but that's the point. When do we
Right.
get to the point to say, well, you know what? That's the way it worked in Washington. That's not the way it should work. And then we implement a solution to where it doesn't work like that anymore.
Well, and the answer to that is when people get upset enough and angry enough that they actually are willing to take their heads out of the sand.
I'm going to say something here that I think is going to offend a lot of people. Shocker.
All right, hit me. I'm ready to be offended.
Well, I mean, in the political spectrum, if you were so tied up and so blessed wrapped up in being a Democrat or being a Republican that you have to have somebody from that party tell you what you're supposed to think, you're an idiot. Plain and simple.
Absolutely.
And you have no business voting. You have no business opening your mouth about anything because it's the people that continue to vote straight tickets and support these jacklegs that continues to keep us in the situation that we're in now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Redneck agenda, baby.
Well, that's the whole thing about the wolf would not be, the wolf would not be nearly as powerful if he didn't have accomplices amongst the sheep. And that's the.
Did you see my social media post today?
Good Lord, no. What was it?
Oh, well, today's Friday, so this is Flossie Fridays.
All right.
I do a Flossie post every Friday. Little Miss Flossie. We've been watching that the official David movie by Angel Studios. They're making because we're I think they call it a guild member or something like that. And if you're not a guild member, go to Angel Studios. Join. It's worth it. The movies are fantastic. But they've been doing these little, they're like little short episodes, like 5-6 minutes episodes of their progress in the David movie. And so I did a little picture. I had a picture of some sheep. So I photoshopped Flossie in and photoshopped her face around inside the wool and tagged Angel Studios and the official David movie and all that stuff and said, Flossie wants to try out to be a sheep or a shepherd, but she's leaning more toward a shepherd because this wool is way too hot. And Flossie, she looks so cute. I'll send it to you offline after a while, but she looks so cute. But it is very disheartening because I can remember a time when it didn't matter really whether you were a Democrat or a Republican. you could discuss something and be civil about it. But now I'm like befuddled because you can't talk to anybody because you have the yahoos on one side that's running amok and running everything. You got the yahoos on the other side, and it's like the people in the middle, the ones that are really the backbone of both parties, are being ignored. And we're the biggest voting block of all of them.
Well, but that was one of the things I noticed. I saw this. This was a pretty good article I read. Now, the first thing that I would advise anybody that's listening to it, yeah, it had pretty pictures. Now, so the first thing I would advise anybody that is listening to do is when you are listening or reading the news, pay attention to whether someone is telling you a fact or if they are telling you what they think. Because what you'll notice is that 99% of the talking heads on TV aren't telling you any facts. Exactly. They're telling you what to think about the facts.
My concern is
you don't need to read the facts. Well, here's what you're supposed to think about.
I think here's the problem that we're running into a lot is I don't think most people, particularly of a younger persuasion, can discern whether it's fact or opinion.
Yeah, I mean, again, because these are the same people that have been taught that your feelings are facts or that your feelings actually matter. Mm-hmm. Now, your feelings are there to warn you of danger, okay, that there's a crocodile that lives in this watering hole that's going to try to eat you. And so you're supposed to feel a certain way when you go up to that watering hole.
Mm-hmm.
But that is merely input into the decision-making process. The way, excuse me, the way that you feel is just input. The fact is, that's the watering hole. If you don't get water, you'll die of thirst. But and there's an alligator in there.
No, it's a crocodile.
Yeah, crocodile. I'm sorry,
he was going to see us after a while.
Yeah, exactly.
And believe me, because of the school I went to in the SEC, I know the difference. An alligator will see you later, and the crocodile will see you after a while.
Exactly. Forget this stuff about jaws being hinged in the size of the particular critter. But anyway,
that's opinion. That's not fact. That's opinion. Fake news.
Fake news. But again, that's what 90% of this stuff. So if somebody spends no time telling you what the facts of the matter are, and all the time telling you about like all this stuff about Hunter, there's nothing to see here. All these people talking about that. They're not giving you facts.
Whatever happened to the good old days when you had Walter Cronkite just telling you what the news was and not telling you what he thought?
And I'll answer that question. It's called the 24-hour news cycle that appeared when cable.
It's when CNN started. So it's Ted Turner.
That's correct.
Ted Turner's fault.
That was the beginning of one of my favorite movies, but not because it had any significant value cinematically, was Anchorman 2. And I think they called it GNN, Global News Network. But at the point,
I didn't never seen the first one.
Well, you should, simply for the fact that the epiphany that they have is when the anchor man, Ron Burgundy, who is absolutely he is the slimiest human being to ever, walk on the face of the earth, the character, the way he's portrayed, comes up with the notion.
I think I can list a couple that might give him a run for his money.
Well, you should
that are not fictitious.
Well, no, this is a fictitious character, so I'm not, we'll draw the line there. But he comes up with the epiphany of, news, and facts. Why do we have to tell people the facts and the news? Why can't we just tell them what we think or what we want them to think or something like that? I can't remember the exact quote. But that is really what it is, and that was their epiphany. They don't have to tell you the facts. Right. But again, back in the days of Edward R. Murrow and Walter Cronkite and
Paul Harvey, and now Paul Harvey, the rest of the story.
They had a short period. Well, and talk radio still does a fairly good job of getting the facts out there in some cases. I mean, I'm not going to call which cases are which,
Right.
but some cases they still do. Now, PBS has turned into an absolute nightmare. I don't ever think it was too terribly far from that, but at any rate, but the point being, they in the well, and but again, this has been going on forever because it was Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, who said, "Those who do not read the news are uninformed. However, those who do read the news are misinformed."
Correct.
And
I
so
love
this
Mark
is,
Twain.
oh yeah. I mean, and again, folks like Will Rogers that used to say, I mean, why don't you see more quotes and whatnot about, from Will Rogers anymore? Just thank
Well,
God that we don't get all the government that we pay for and things of that nature.
I can give you
You
a
know?
quote from Michael Whitehall.
Well, go right ahead. I'm sure I think I know what that is already, but knock yourself right out. And now you just about made me spit my coffee all over my laptop.
And that, my friends, is the snout to the curly tail and everything in between. And if you want me to tell you it again,
Have a good evening.
and we go.
All right, you crazy bunch of motherfuckers. Wait, can we say mother? Anyway, you've been listening to the Carolina Underground. It isn't politically correct, it's just correct. Our motto is, if you can't go balls deep, don't go at all. Actually, that's not our motto, and I'm sorry, I don't even know what that meant. All right, we gotta go. We hope you enjoyed the show. And if you didn't, we hope it really pissed you off. Follow us on Twitter at Carolina UNDGRND Underground, get it? Or drop us an email at Carolina UNDGRND, get it? At northstate.net. We want to hear from you. Y'all be cool. See you next time on Carolina Underground.